Welcome to Retrobot, the YouTube channel where we feed a friendly space robot a diet of pure nostalgia. I'm Clay, and this is a short circuits video, shorter formats for your retro viewing needs. Today, we are talking about Warbotron. This is part of a series where we're going to look at each of the different components of Warbotron and then finish it up with one video all about the combined form. So we are starting with Heavy Noise, who is the tank part of the team that combines. But first, of course, I'm going to show you Warbotron so you can see him in all his glory, and we are talking about the tank guy right here, Heavy Noise, who is heavily inspired by the Combaticon Brawl. So let's dive right in. So for those who don't know, Warbotron is a transforming robot combiner team that is heavily inspired by the Transformers Combaticons, but it is not made by Hasbro. It is a complete third-party company. And so Heavy Noise here, which you can see here, is inspired by the Combaticon Brawl, but it is very much its own unique thing. Now, you can see the tank mode here, and the tank mode really does look really, really nice. It's got excellent details. It's got a lot of weapons. It has a turret that rotates. It's got extra guns that can be removed, and there's actually several places where you can stick the guns. You can stick them here. There's some places up here that are kind of hard to get to. These don't fit here, even though that there's a couple holes there, but those are just for screws. But they look really good on the top here. You also have the cannon on the main gun here, so you can see that the gun does elevate. Tight joints, which in my opinion is a good thing. So very, very playable in the tank mode. Of course, the treads are just molded. It is very rare to find a tank toy these days that actually have functioning treads. Even back in the day, most tank toys would not have functioning treads, and especially since they have to split in order to make the transform work, then that's just not going to happen. So this is Heavy Noise, and let's go ahead and show him in his robot mode. And so to do that, I'm going to show you the steps here. We've got the little back panels here, which are going to flip up just like that. I'm actually going to just pull the turret off. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm not super wild about when you have to remove a major part of the vehicle in order to transform it. It does integrate, but to me, when you do that, it's a little bit of a design shortcut, but it's a really, really complex toy with some pretty impressive engineering. So I'm going to try to give him a pass on it, but it is noteworthy that you do really need to pull the turret completely off in order to transform it into its robot mode. Now, the one thing that you do with this guy that is pretty unusual is you're going to give him a little bit of a pull, and then you're going to pivot the middle piece right here like that. And that is going to release the fists from being kind of encased inside the legs. And that's a little bit unusual, but you may find that instinctively you want to just start pulling at the arms, and they're not going to come free until you pivot what is going to become his chest. Now you can see the head back here. That's going to flip up and then rotate around, and you can see that he's got the light piping in the eyes, which is very effective on this toy. he's got this little piece of tank tread that's on this double jointed linkage. So it's going to swing back like that and then snap against the side of the arm. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side and do that. And then from there, you can actually pull the forearms down. And we're going to do the other one. There we go. And now we can bend at the elbows. And so from here, we need to extend the legs. And so to do that, you need to spread them out. And then there's this back panel that the turret was attached to. And this is why you need to remove the turret, because there's no way to access this with the turret still attached. And it does sort of have to fold up here. Now, I guess if you were really, really determined not to take off that turret, you could try and leave it on there and then, you know, maneuver the legs and sort of get them to free, because they do have to swing around like this. So it is conceivable that you could do that with the turret still attached. But boy, having it off does make it a lot easier. And of course, without when you do leave this on, now you have a lot of gaping holes in the back here, and this can't really get out of the way. So honestly, you just have to accept it and fold this up against the back, and that fills in the hole. And then if you want, you can just plug that right into the back and have it up against his back. But there are other things that we can do with that, and I'll show that in a minute. So you have the legs freed up here, and we are going to continue straightening the leg. These panels here actually have to swing around to the bottom of the leg. They then split to make a foot, and he's even got an ankle joint here, which is really, really nice. And that's going to make him look a lot better when you're posing him. And then there's a panel here on the inside of the leg that comes down, and that just kind of fills in the hole a little bit. And then you also have this panel back here that's going to close down and kind of fill in the back of the leg like that. So they've gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that in his robot mode, he really looks good and looks solid, even in the places where they've hollowed things out to make room for other parts. So we're going to do that whole maneuver again. We're going to swing these around, split the foot, take this panel and close it down here. And now you can straighten out the legs. You can put them into cool poses and do that. You can also take off the turret, and this is where they've done some cool creative things. And I'm not a fan of taking off big pieces and then just saying, oh, it's a gun. But I will say that what they've done with Heavy Noise here is they've continued engineering stuff so that it's not just taking off a piece, sticking it somewhere else, and saying, look, it's a gun. They do have some other stuff that happens. So you can pivot these down like this, and then fold them right up like that, and that becomes a weapon that he can hold. So you can either have him hold it at the back here like this, but it's a little bit awkward. It doesn't quite clear his wrist. You can also have him hold it here. It helps to have it at a little bit of an angle, because of course if you want to have him bending his elbow, then you need this to be able to clear that tread, and that's pretty cool. And then you've got this piece, which is sort of a shield with machine guns on it, which, you know what, if I was carrying a shield, I would prefer the one that has machine guns on it, because now that's useful. So the way that this goes on is you pull out that tread, you put it through here, you put it through that opening, and then you flatten out the tread again. So here we go. Let me just do this. Okay, so you go like that, have it just out like that, put this on here like this, and now you're able to fold this down and see how it just locks that right into place, and it fits very nicely on his arm. So while I generally think of pulling off big parts and just relocating them for a transform to be a little bit of a shortcut, I will say that they did their diligence in still having these parts make creative moves and do unique things to increase their playworthiness in the toy, and that makes me far more willing to forgive that. And like I said, you can leave it on the back. It just doesn't look as good. And so this is actually pretty cool. And so there he is. And let's go ahead and put him on the platform so that you can see him in all his glory. So here he is. This is Heavy Noise in his robot mode, and you can see that he really does have just an amazing form in his robot mode. He looks great. He's got great articulation around the elbows and forearms. The shoulders are a little bit limited. There's not a lot of room to move them, but as you can see, you can still get him into cool action poses, and he's got that big gun. His waist pivots, his hips pivot. He's got swivels in his thighs and in his knees. The ankle really does a lot, and especially since it's on a panel that also pivots here, then you can get a really nice natural curve from the knee down to the foot here that makes him look very dynamic when he's in an action pose. So yeah, Heavy Noise really does look fantastic, and just as a standalone figure, he is very, very playworthy, and just an engineering marvel from a third-party company. And yeah, sure, he is absolutely inspired by Brawl from the Combaticons, but he sure does come into his own. So that is Heavy Noise, the figure that is inspired by Transformers Combaticon Brawl, part of Warbotron, the third-party combiner that is inspired by the Combaticons and Bruticus. He is a little pricey on the secondary market, although and a little bit hard to get a hold of. Right now, I'm looking at the Big Bad Toy Store website, and you can see that he is sold out, but he was also on sale for under $40, which is not bad for a high quality third-party toy. A lot of these third-party figures are typically much more expensive than a lot of the figures that you get in retail, but what you're paying for is a high level of detail, and also much smaller distribution. You know, these are toys for collectors and toys for adult fans who want to see these characters reimagined in a way that is more interesting and sometimes done in a way that mass manufacture, the economics just don't allow for. And so if you have the opportunity and you're interested in Warbotron, or even just interested in a tank character that's inspired by Brawl, Heavy Noise is really, you just can't beat him. He is actually an excellent toy. The only real complaint that I would have about him is the fact that you do have to remove the turret in order to transform him, but it's a small conceit for an otherwise excellent figure. And so there he is, Heavy Noise, and he definitely gets a thumbs up at the regular price of under $90. It's an investment that I would only recommend for really serious collectors, but when you see him at a discounted price, like in this case under $40, it's actually a pretty good value, especially if you are an adult collector and a fan of the original Combaticons. So there you go. If you like this review, then please click the thumbs up button, consider subscribing to the channel, and click the notification bell so that you know when we're doing more of these Short Circuits videos, or our live streams, which we typically do every Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard United States time, or daylight time, whether it's the summer or the winter. Google will tell you what it is. So, this is Clay telling you to keep it retro. But, that's right, because the Combaticons are retro, and they're bots, and the channel is Retro Bot, which I guess is why we'd be talking about Combaticons, even though this is not really a Combaticon. That is trademark Hasbro, and this is not Hasbro. It's Warbotron from Warbotron. It's Retrobot. That's the point.